Hello there, and welcome back to This Month Above the Fold, a monthly series on the Commerce Collective feed, where Danny Hoffman, Senior Director of Global Retail Strategy, and I cover the most important happenings in commerce each and every month. I am your host, Emma Irwin, and this month we are talking about Alexa for shopping, Prime Day sneakily moving up into June this year, and then retailers redesigning and reformatting their stores at scale and what that really means. With that, let's get into it. Danny, how are you this month? You mentioned a foodie-ish trip last month. Did you go on it, and did you eat good food?
I was in Bologna for my anniversary. I wanted to eat a lot. And so Bologna is, I think, the food capital of Europe. And they're famous for tortellini and so tortellini and brodo, obviously bolognese, and lasagna verde are like the three main dishes. I had them a lot. And it's also very close to Parma, which is the home of prosciutto di Parma and Parmigiano Reggiano, obviously staples in the world, and
Yes.
Modena, which is the home of balsamic vinegar. So I had the foodiest time.
Beautiful. Okay, today we are talking about Alexa for shopping. We're going to talk a little bit about Prime Day being in June this year, and then we'll wrap it up talking about some like store remodels and redesigns at scale and what that means and why that's happening. So starting with Alexa for shopping, this was big. This has been exciting to watch and play around with, and every time I kind of go in there and touch it, I get a little bit different of a UX, so there's a lot of experimentation going on. But for those wondering, Amazon recently rebranded AI assistant Rufus into Alexa for Shopping, and Alexa for Shopping is like quite a bit more robust of a conversational commerce experience. What's so different about Alexa for Shopping? Like, why is that more than just a name change?
I actually usually when something big happens and this feels significant enough, I look at the earnings report and then anything that comes out these days from Jassy that talks about what is happening and why. And Alexa for Shopping made an appearance there. Also several other things. So Buy For Me, Join the Chat, which is an audio overview that's on PDPs that I was able to trigger in the wild
Whoa.
last week. Yeah, wild. That one is so when you're on a PDP, it's below the main image and it's almost like a 2-minute podcast where two people will talk about the product and the category. And
Huh.
I'm here in North Carolina. My brother's wedding is this upcoming weekend. I'm at his house, and we had to buy suspenders, and I'm buying black suspenders, and it is comparing product, and so telling me about how the Docker suspenders, which are twice the price of the non-branded one, are worth it, and what wild experience. So it feels like all of this is converging around how to get somebody to product decision making faster. And so I mentioned Jassy, but like looking at the words that he used, he said 20% of shoppers who interact with the sponsored brand prompt in the tool choose to continue the conversation. So the goal here seems to be stickiness and consumer experience, at least on the surface.
For everyone watching live, I'd love to actually test out Alexa for Shopping and see kind of what the flow looks like. And like I said, it might be different depending on the day that you look and what exactly you're searching. But okay, we have Amazon out. And if let's type in, what do I need for a 3-day camping trip with my dog? Which sounds terrible, but I'm going to type that in to see how it works. Okay, so immediately we have like Alexa for shopping. She pops up, takes over the whole screen, and she's writing out all of these things that I might need. We've got shelter, equipment, snacks, dog travel items, like the little bowl that pops in and out. And then there's like a product or two recommended for each of these needs, and clearly most of these are personalized to things I've purchased before. And then of course there are further like product related prompts as to other things I might need, like a cooling vest for dog. It knows that I have a husky. I'm convinced she knows. Dog friendly camping food, whatever. So like this is way better of an experience than what Rufus used to be, and then I had to like go out of my way to find Rufus, and then like, or if you typed a question into the search bar, you would just get like a random assortment of products that don't really answer the question. So, but what about this stands out to you the most? Because this is fun. I like this a lot. This
Okay.
is one of my favorite updates.
It's much better in terms of personalization. It's much better in terms of product discovery. I think it's actually doing something similar to what I saw Sparky doing, which is it's a path toward AOV. So it's getting you closer to a broader purchase decision across multiple categories and products. It's almost like going grocery shopping a little bit. So Amazon is so mission specific A lot of digital commerce is so mission specific. This is a way to get you to buy across multiple things without really thinking that you're going to do it, and maybe potentially doubling your investment as a consumer.
I like it. And then there's also the added element of all of this kind of came out at the same time, but AI overviews. I'm also a big fan of AI overviews, which for those who haven't seen that yet, if you type in, it might be a question or just a generic kind of keyword search. Like was looking over the weekend at like teeth cleaning dog treats, and because my dogs need those clearly. And this is a lot about dogs. But anyways, you type it in and then underneath, kind of like Google has done for a long time, there's this AI overview and it cites its sources and there's a good mix of like product information and then it's also prompting why are you like it's great that you need to clean your dog's teeth. This is why that's important and then all kinds of things there. But like are you into AI overviews? Cuz I think this is like what used to be product research that I would do outside of Amazon, I'm now kind of trusting to happen within the walls of Amazon and then I'm like waiting much longer to actually arrive at a PDP and I'm getting a lot of information and I think it's keeping me within the walls of Amazon sticky like you said.
I use overviews as a consumer all the time without really thinking that I'm using it. It cuts through the shelf. And so this is the endless aisle is becoming increasingly truncated because you're getting to the information that you want much, much, much faster. But I think this is an example of two different versions of AI impacting commerce. So there's one version, which is this. Amazon has this kind of closed environment. It all happens within the app. So all of the data is coming from ratings, reviews, and product data, both back end and front end. And that is being aggregated either in Alexa for shopping or within these AI overviews, but it all sits in the same ecosystem. And then you have the other version, so the Walmart version, which is much more open, which is integrations with aggregated environments like a ChatGPT, but then Walmart is the owner of last mile logistics. And I actually think the timing of this is really interesting. I know we talked fulfillment last month, but in between last month and this month, Amazon announced Amazon supply chain services. So how do I then go out and sell last mile fulfillment? Walmart has also announced, and I think we'll talk about it when we talk about like store rebuilds and all of that, but Walmart's also announced the shift in terms of being able to navigate and sell last mile fulfillment too. So you have these two different versions. One is closed stack Amazon, one is open and then operating in someone else's environment, which is Walmart. But both are different paths to product discovery.
Is one path better than the other, do you think, in the long term?
So I was going down a rabbit hole on this because I was trying to figure out if one is better than the other. So we'll take the Amazon one first. So why is Amazon doing the closed version? It's better for Amazon, and the reason is two things. One is the obvious one, which is ads. So I think we talked about it here before, which is the AI overviews is this the death of sponsored products? And I think it's just a shift, sponsored prompts instead. But because it's in a closed environment where Amazon has the user ID, the user data, to your point in terms of your experience using this new Alexa for shopping environment, it feels very personalized. The discovery doesn't feel forced. Amazon continues to have all of these different opportunities to monetize the conversation with a consumer. This actually ends up leading much more toward a true closed loop. So one of the other things that Jassy mentioned in the earnings report was specifically that Amazon audiences for advertisers using Amazon ads can buy advertising on Netflix, which is great.
Yep.
But that then means that if you have product purchase separate from the environment where you have product discovery, you don't have that true closed loop that brands want. So there's an ads component to this, as there always is. The second piece that I think is really interesting is, again, within Amazon, why are they doing the closed version? Is I think it's an AWS play. So historically, AWS is always like, that's the ads and AWS are the two profit centers of Amazon. But it's not just AWS. When you look at the earnings reports for all of the biggest tech companies, the astronomical CapEx numbers are stressful to investors. The thing that seems to be quieting that a little bit is anyone who has some sort of cloud capability, so like a Google or an Amazon. And AWS revenue was plus 28% year over year for Q1, which was the fastest growth in 15 quarters for AWS. Why is that important? Is because Amazon is not just like owning the whole consumer experience in terms of ads, but is all now trying to own the total experience in terms of their own custom chips, using their LLM to train their own AI model like Bedrock that then they will sell back to other businesses. So this is just a path from CapEx to additional revenue. So I think it's both of those things for Amazon in terms of keeping it in the same environment.
Fascinating. It'll be
Um,
interesting to see how everything plays out.
yeah.
But
So and then the Walmart side of that, I think, is they're taking the bet that consumers are more interested in some sort of like independent chat, and that they're going to go use a chat GPT relative to an Alexa for shopping to make discovery. So I think it's those are the two bets. It's, do I stay in one and then use what I've got to then build and monetize, or do I go and be interoperable with everything else? And there isn't really a right answer right now. So we'll see.
if you have advice for brands in terms of just like with everything changing here and Alexa for shopping, AI overviews, and then even everything with Sparky and that Walmart's doing, like, do you have any advice for brands right now who are looking at these two different paths, being like, oh my God, what do I do?
The data itself is the most critical piece here. So whichever LLM the product is being surfaced on, the goal is that it's the data that you have on both the front end and back end of the product within that retail environment is accurate. So your categorizations are correct. All of the information about the product itself is correct, but also is relevant to what consumers want. If the product content that is controllable for you is something that is relevant to what consumers are looking for, or information that they that is critical to their eventual discovery and purchase, that's the thing that's within brand's control. Otherwise, it sort of feels like throwing my products into the ether and then seeing what sticks. And then obviously sponsor prompts is the way to then circumvent and jump the aisle, same way that you would think about sponsor products.
I'm thinking of a brand just using the audio version of a PDP as the recap for seeing what happens if you just throw things at the wall and like, oh, what will get generated in a podcast format or a conversational format that's literally audio.
Well, historically, we've always been like, oh, A plus content is nice to have, especially for like quick purchase products. It was clearly
Yeah.
combing the comparison chart too. So it was
Hmm.
like, oh, wait a second. Do I have control over this in a way that I used to, like, this thing used to be buried somewhere below the fold on a product page. Now it's like, wait a second, is this front and center to consumer discovery? So it's just all the fundamentals are still the fundamentals, but this now becomes increasingly important just to have everything to be correct and managing the details appropriately.
I'm going to move us into story number 2, which is talking about Prime Day. Prime Day is historically in July. I read, and I think I was around for the one time it was also in June. But this year we're in June, and that means it's like literally really close. And that's crazy that it's already June and that it's that close. But why is Amazon moving Prime Day forward into June a big deal?
The history of Prime Day in July is that July is usually one of the softer months in retail. And so it was kind of like this jolt in the arm to be able to kind of juice Q3. The challenge of Prime Day, so then during COVID, Amazon had to shift it to October. What happens is you have this drug that now creates addiction in terms of annualized revenue. So every single year you're going to look back and you'll be like, okay, compared to July of last year, I now have to beat July of last year. Compared to October of last, I now have to beat October. And so for brands, what ends up happening is that your investment every year becomes more and more and more. I think a colleague at one point joked that more than 5% of the days of the year are official tentpole events. Like, you're spending a lot of money and you're trying to win a lot of consumer demand. The question is, which events are the ones that you go ahead and choose? That's not just true within an Amazon ecosystem, but across retailers. So Prime Day historically was an Amazon event that then ended up having Circle Week, and Walmart Plus had a copycat event. So everyone had their big tentpole all in July. So I think the obvious one is like, oh, well, I'm just going to move mine to June and see if I can steal demand all for myself. So I think that's part of it. The other part, I think, is the shot in the arm for Q2. So by moving from July to June, it's not just moving a month earlier, but it's actually moving a quarter earlier. So now you get some of that like pre-planning for summer. You're trying to catch consumer demand when they're most likely to spend during a period that's also historically soft.
So then are you, because Q3, okay, July through September. I
Mhm.
would assume that that's relative, like July and August are probably, I guess back to school is in there too. But okay, moving the demand and all of that revenue into Q2, like, doesn't Q3 then become much softer and like you've just moved the softness somewhere else? And I don't really know how you solve that, but like, explain that more.
Amazon, Walmart, Target, and Best Buy. I was looking at quarterly earnings over from like 2015 to most recent Q1, and when the revenue was softest by quarter. And Q2 on average has the softest revenue quarter across each of these four major retailers. So I think it's a little bit of actually taking and shifting. But you're right. Like if I take from July to June, am I not just taking from left pocket to right? One of the other things with consumer spending is that in the summer, usually consumers have, especially for pre-planning for summer and travel, consumers have already spent it. So I think it's trying to capture this new event a little bit earlier, when people are most likely to end up actually having the money to spend. The consumer spending is also right now it's tight because the way, especially in the States, the way that the dollar is currently going, most people don't have as much money to spend, or the dollar doesn't go as far in terms of spending. How do you juice demand? You do it at a time where they probably haven't already spent all of their money. I think there's also a strategic play here in two ways. So one is it gives a little bit of breathing room between July and October. I think there's Prime Day in October was not that successful, relatively, because consumers had already spent their money in July and advertisers had also already spent their money in July. So if you shift it a little bit more, you give a little bit of breathing room for both ad budget and consumer revenue. And I think the competitiveness piece here is if consumers have already bought their product on discount a month before everyone else, Amazon has then kind of knifed all the other retailers a little bit. And you've taken people out of market essentially.
Well, yeah, when I was writing the questions, I was like, okay, so there's going to be something with like the economics of it, but like, is it kind of just a sneaky play? And like, hey, team, we invented this holiday basically of Prime Day, and therefore we're going to put it wherever the heck we want to because we can. And we know people are going to spend.
The thing that we saw even within the Amazon ecosystem, so the recommendation to brands last year when it was the 4-day event, was actually you can almost pull yourself out of the event and do a pre-event. So
Yeah.
the data is showing that consumers add to cart sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before Prime Day. So like event gets announced and then consumers add to cart and they wait. And so then during the event, they convert whenever that deal is live. But imagine that you do the same thing, but instead of for the deal, it's for the event itself, you do it for all of the other retailers. I think that Amazon might also unintentionally or intentionally double dip. So price matching is going to end up potentially being something where if everyone else has their discount event in July and Amazon has theirs in June, you get the big event in June with all the publicity, notoriety, the actual promotions, and then you also have unintentional price match discounts in July too that match assortment that's across multiple retailers.
I want to ask you because there's always a question about what do brands do, but this time I want to know like, what are the 5 things that brands should be doing getting ready for Prime Day right now?
The several that are always top is like get your content ready, get your forecasted inventory ready, figure out a way to just kind of be ready to be purchasable. So if you're not in stock and your content isn't ideal, not great. I'm going to combine two of them into one. So budgets and targeting. And budgets is just like I've taken it out of one quarter into another, which for those of us that live in this ecosystem, we're like, well, Prime Day is in June, just move it from July to June. It doesn't always work like that. And especially for companies where their fiscal year ends June 30th, this is a significant shift. Their Q4 just became blockbuster, and now they have a softer start to Q1. So budgets and expectations internally is going to be really, really critical there in terms of like how much money am I actually investing in this versus how much am I going to save and try to re-win consumers later. And then targeting. And so this is where I think that Prime Day itself has changed significantly over the last few years, and all of the AI integrations within the Amazon ecosystem have made this even more exacerbated. But product discovery has become harder, not easier. And so what I mean by that is everything is just so hyper personalized. You're being served things that you've already seen before. You need to be able to get product in front of consumers early to trigger their in-event experience to be uh, not a full discovery, but a rediscovery. Oh, here's that thing that you've already seen. Here's that thing that you've already purchased, but now on discount. Um, you're kind of fabricating discovery and event. So I think those are my top four. I think the fifth one to me is actually cross retailer. So
Mhm.
a little bit more of a macro strategy. So there are going to be people who own individual retailers and some people who own digital commerce sales across multiple retailers. Um, your strategy there is going to end up being heavily impacted by this too. So figuring out like, do I only run my retailer specific assortment and try to avoid the inevitable price matching and then kind of like ride the wave of price matching within. So like if I run a discount on Walmart, I know it's probably going to show up on Amazon, for example. So those are probably my top five.
Story number 3. There was this article from Payments, and the headline is Storefront Overhauls Turning Retailers into Data Hubs. And that's kind of jargony, but I think like follow me because I'm supposed to insert myself more into these conversations. Follow me here. In that, like, you can buy literally anything online. So, like, taking a step back from this headline, I can buy anything online. Therefore, why should I go to a store? But we have the data that like people still absolutely go to stores, and even the younger generations are going to stores like at rates that nobody would have expected because craving some sort of physical something. I have 1 million options of where to go get something at a store. And so therefore all of the retailers are kind of competing over really just getting the right foot traffic into their store, and part of that comes to having a data experience that is very connected between physical and digital. And I talk about this all the time. Like, I don't want to have to go to 14 different grocery stores because I thought everything was in stock. I looked it up in the app, it said it was in stock. It's in aisle G5, and then I go and it's not there, and then I have to go somewhere else, and that's incredibly frustrating. Therefore, that one gets axed. That one ends up in the burn book. I'm not going back. And it's I don't think every consumer is that retaliatory, but if that's a word. But anyway, do you agree with that foundation as kind of what's fueling all of these store remodels? What's your take?
This was inspired by Walmart announcing a revamp of 425 locations. So they did like a 22 store pilot. I feel like more macro before we dive into the details of it is um, there's this like push and pull between online and in-store. I think for any omnichannel retailer where they're looking at their growth and they're like, oh my, all my growth is coming from online. Where do I invest? And I think you're seeing this this hybrid approach. So part of what I think Walmart is doing is creating a connectivity between online and in-store. To your point, I think we're seeing other retailers who are actually taking even further investment in their in-store experience, making it something where it's like, well, if I'm going to put on fabric and leave my house to go to a place, what makes this worth it for me? And
Yeah.
I think there's this kind of this dual investment of how do I create a connective tissue between the two places, and then how do I actually make it worthwhile to stand in store and what's in store versus online.
And then on that, like, in your opinion, what are ways to get people to put on fabric and leave the house and go to a store? Like, what is gonna send people over that edge in order to not over the edge, like cross that barrier to get to a store?
Yeah, I mean, there's still like I don't have to put on fabric to do online, the pickup stuff too. So anything that's delivery or anything that's like curbside pickup, those still count as sweatpants. Um, and that's I think one of the things that Walmart has invested in is like this expanded pickup services and express delivery options. But the in-store piece, so like wider aisles, better digital touch points in store. They're saying that I think the language they used was refreshed interiors with modern signage, improved parking and landscaping, but they're also embedding other services in the stores too. So updated vision centers and pharmacies, private consultation rooms. So they're making it so that you're not just there to buy stuff, but you're also there to do other things. There's this collectivity where everyone is trying to be like the one-stop shop, but making it so that it's like my health experience also happens in the place where I buy my milk, which happens in the place where I buy my diapers, which happens in the place where I buy my my throw pillows. All of those things happening in the same physical environment. That's the goal for someone to be in a physical store. A lot of the data also shows that consumers who go to a physical store versus online, we were talking earlier about AOV, have a higher value to a retailer. They're willing to buy more stuff because they're walking through aisles and they're willing to put things into their cart versus like mission specific. I was talking about suspenders earlier. Like I bought $10 worth of suspenders when if I went to a Men's Warehouse or something, I bought suspenders and I'm like, oh, maybe this shirt, maybe this jacket. Like you start to be tempted too.
Do you think, this is more of an existential question, do you think that like the one-stop shop is a good thing for humanity? Like I know that that's what requires the majority of people to like go to a store, but I also am like, oh, like will we ever move away from wanting my vision and all of like being able to get my vaccines? And then maybe I have got political without even trying. And it's like all of that. That was a normal sentence. But things like that, going and get like your normal health care. Do like, is that a good thing? Will people move away from that out of like getting bored of the one-stop shop idea?
There is always going to be this consumer behavior, even as things shift progressively, either more online or more digital, where you have the person who is researching online and buying in store. Like I think that will always still be part of consumer behavior. One of the things that actually we saw several years ago was that um, we were able to take Circana data and pair it with AMC, which is pretty sweet. So like, yeah, users, you match them together. We ended up doing it only for a month because the price point to use the data was too high for the brand that we're working with, and like we weren't able to use the full view. But for the test, you could actually see whether same consumer was exposed to a DSP ad, and then where they then bought next in store and online, and then where they made their next purchase in store and online. And people were actually very loyal to the environment that they were in. So
Hmm.
if you made your purchase online, you stayed online. If you made your purchase in store, you stayed in store. That's specific to different experiences. But I still think that there's a lot of value here. So there's two other things besides the Walmart one that I was also noticing that made this kind of a theme emerging. So one was Target has a new CEO, new direction, and one of their biggest call outs in terms of earnings this most recent quarter was their investment in assortment-led merchandising that drove a return to growth. In plain English, we changed things in store, but also specifically they're shifting focus actually into a little bit more of their own products. The goal here is getting people in store because it drives potentially higher margin. But the value of online is that the margin then comes from ads, and so there's this push and pull between. Dick's Sporting Goods also had a larger revamp too. So Dick's House of Sport, and for them, it was actually much more about like climbing walls and actually being able to try product and like there's an experience in store versus something that's a little bit truncated, faster, and transactional that happens online. The stores themselves are changing. So there's not just like one store either, but there's versions of, right? There's like there's I live in the UK, like Marks and Spencer is they both sell clothes and they sell groceries, but there's also these truncated versions. There's also like Waitrose and then Little Waitrose, where you have like the corner store version of the mega store. I think that the loser or the risk here is actually kind of like the mom and pops or the specialties, because aggregation ends up
Yeah.
being king. If you have all these disparate stores that exist or all these disparate locations where you can sell things or where you're a consumer you can buy things, brands will kind of pick where their selection and assortment goes. They can't be everywhere. And it actually comes all the way back to the first thing that we're talking about, which is like, how do you own the full consumer experience end to end in terms of brand discovery all the way to purchase? If that closed loop happens in a way that's measurable and I can influence consumer discovery all the way to purchase, that's where I'll invest as a brand, because that's what I care about is data connectivity.
And that wraps up another episode of the Commerce Collective podcast. Thank you to Danny, as always, for his insights. I've been your host, Emma Irwin, and we will see you next month.